Good day, citizens of the Dayton community. I'm Derrick, Foward, president of the Dayton Unit NAACP, and we have two guests here with us today on our Dayton Unit NAACP Update Show. We actually have Mark Owens, who serves as Dayton Municipal Court, clerk of Dayton Municipal Court, and then we also have Sheriff Plummer for Montgomery County. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing well.
Doing well, Derrick.
Good. Well, we certainly appreciate you all coming out today, to talk about, various things, and from a political standpoint and a non-political standpoint, as it relates to each of your respective parties. So we have Sheriff Plummer, who is the chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Party. And then we also have Mark Owens, who is the chairman of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. So if you can just, first of all, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your career in terms of politics, and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start with the sheriff.
Well, Derrick, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Basically, Derrick, I was born here in Dayton, Ohio. I'm 51 years old, lived here my entire life except for a little stint in college. Very passionate about this community. So, just living here, seeing the changes in our community. I got a little upset about some policy changes and the way some things are being ran in this community. So I decided I'd take over the Republican Party, where I may be able to elect some elected officials to help make some changes that I think are needed in this community. So, it's a very difficult job. It's very demanding. And but as the party chairman, I'm not looking to take over the world. We're looking at just balance. We're looking at having another voice to the table and helping some folks in the community that need help. So that's why I'm doing it. I mean, it takes a lot of time. But it's passion, and it's serving the community, to try to improve the community, and that's my goal to run the party.
Okay. And so how long have you been the chairman of the Republican Party here in Montgomery County?
It's been 2 years now.
2 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mark?
Yeah, Derrick, again, thank you for having me. I am actually kind of an Air Force. They used to call them Air Force brats, so that's kind of where I was from. So we settled here in the Dayton area when I was in high school, and I've been here since then. I'm 59 years old. My day job is the Dayton Clerk of Courts, and I enjoy that. I've been doing it for now 25 years. At the end of this month, end of January, will be my 25th year, and I've enjoyed that position, because it does impact people that come to court. If you ever have any dealings with a court, most people don't really want to, but if they do have dealings, it's probably with the municipal court, whether it be through a parking ticket or a traffic fine. And so we want to make sure that people are treated fairly and with justice and with respect. So I've enjoyed doing that. I've been involved in politics when I got out of college, basically here in Montgomery County since 1982. And I have run various campaigns over a period of time, and I eventually became the chairman of our local party in April of 2007.
All right. So been involved in politics basically over 3 decades.
3 decades, yes, I have. Yes,
wow, that's a long time. All right. So as you look, as everybody knows, or if the people who don't know, the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, but we're highly political. So everything that we do, we are an issues-driven organization. So what moves us are the issues. How are people aligning themselves with various issues that affect citizens within Montgomery County? So I'm thinking about that. A lot of times people look at the NAACP or look at me in terms of my personal party affiliation, of which I'm a proud Democrat, but at the end of the day, for me, in my role as the president of the Dayton Unit NAACP, I got to play my role, and my role is one of being nonpartisan. So when we look at the role of the presidency of the NAACP, I noticed that both of you, and we certainly appreciate it as we celebrated 100 years this year, inside the Dayton community. The NAACP here in Dayton was actually founded May 10th, 1915, and we celebrated 100 years back on May 10th, 2015. But had the big celebration in October, where both of you two wrote letters in support of our mission, our core goals, and our values. So I just want to know from each of you, what is it, how do you see the role, what do you see the role of the NAACP as being here inside of our local community. Being here 100 years, you are Democratic, you're Republican, and so what do you see our role in terms of our nonpartisan status, but highly political?
Well, I think that the role of the NAACP has been and will continue to be to promote equal justice in our community, and particularly for the African American community. Obviously, it was created here and also nationally. It was a few years before it was created here, because it was maybe 4 or 5 years before that.
That's correct.
To ensure that African Americans had equal justice under the law, and to promote their access to jobs, to basic fairness, which unfortunately with our history that wasn't it wasn't there, and so it was their position, and it's my understanding in the history of the NAACP, it was created by African Americans, but also by some very prominent whites in the country at that time that were looking to make sure that there was access for everybody. So I think that what's been they have fought for voting rights. They have fought for equal rights and the ability to through the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is an example of that, to access to basic economic justice. Basic justice to buy go into any store and buy things, anything, and it didn't end in the '60s. It just began there, and we still have problems today. And I know that the NAACP is still fighting to ensure that justice and that equality is there.
Yes, sir. And before you give your comments, I just want to make certain that the citizens understand that the NAACP, in fact, was founded by more people that look like you than people that look like me.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people think that the NAACP was founded by mostly African Americans, when in fact that's not the truth. It's nowhere near the truth, because we're actually founded by a multiracial group of individuals striving to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination among all Americans. It's a lady by the name of Mary White Ovington. She had the courage in the early 1900s, a white Caucasian lady. She had the courage in the early 1900s to organize a group of individuals because she was tired of seeing what was happening to people of a darker shade than her.
Right.
People being lynched, she didn't like that. Her blue eyes, when she saw those images of African Americans being hung by trees, that did not settle well with her spirit. So what she did is she organized a group of people. A lot of people know about W.E.B. Du Bois as one of the founders, who was an African-American male. A lot of people know about Ida B. Wells as one of the founders. But they don't know that they don't know about a Oswald Villiard or William English Walling or Henry McCallus or Moorfield Story, who was our first president of the NAACP. They don't know about John Haynes Holmes. So they don't know about all these other names because they never really took the time to study the history of the NAACP. That's why I'm so very careful in my role as the president of the NAACP, and also just as a Native American, to say that all white people are bad, or to say that all black people are bad, because at the end of the day, it's what happens inside of your heart and your soul that will really make people understand where you truly are. So I just want to make certain that, because in your comments you said that you thought that it was founded by more blacks, but it was in fact founded by more whites. I just want to make certain that everybody was clear on that, and that people really understand that this is an organization that's biracial. We cross party lines. We understand how to go out and fight for the issues that mean the most to everyday citizens and everyday Americans.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, Derrick, my interpretation is you, as a president, you're a voice for the voiceless, and you're doing an excellent job at that. Some people may not have the power, the skills, the technology, or the connections to, reach out and be heard, and you do a good job doing that for people that really need help. You mentioned a lot of people that look like me helped found this. Well, my goal is to get more people that look like me involved with the NAACP, because we're on this together. We're all God's children, and we got to work together to make great lives for ourselves, our families, and our kids. So We just need to keep working together. Me and you have a great working relationship, and that's because we know each other and we trust each other. I don't know if it's because we're adults. It seems like our kids get along great. The older people get along great. We're just missing that middle gap somehow. So I don't know. We just got to keep working together and move the ball down the field because, like I said, we're all in this community together.
Good. Yeah. So it's I know it's about how can and that's a good point because it's about how can we move the needle together. Yeah. A lot of times in politics, what we hear is we say, especially people running the campaign, they say, "Oh, I know how to work across the aisles. I know how to work across party aisles. I know how to get things done. Vote me in the office, vote me into Congress, vote me into the state house. I know how to work across party aisles." Well, a lot of times when we vote people in office, they don't know how to work across party aisles, and that's why you have all the tension that we have in Congress right now. Yeah. That's why you can't get hardly a bill passed in Congress, and sometimes you can't get your bill passed in State Hill because of politics.
Absolutely.
So the NAACP says, how can we have a legislative agenda. We have an individual that goes on Capitol Hill, to lobby Congress on issues. We are once again, an issues-driven organization. We have what we consider our 21st century game changers. Number one is economic, and I want to kind of talk about these, with you two gentlemen. Economic sustainability. A chance to live the American dream for all. Every person will have equal opportunity to achieve economic success, sustainability, and financial security. So economic sustainability. So my question to you two would be, how do you see moving the needle? Because in politics, there's a certain amount of jobs that come along with political positions. How can we move the needle in the job frontier to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to equal access, to make certain that everyone has an opportunity to make $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year? How can you do that from your political vantage points as party chairs and the people who fall up under your leadership?
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I think what they're talking about, or at least what I think of, unless I'm misunderstanding your question, is that we have to have people in office that promote jobs both in public and mainly in private in the private sector. I mean, obviously, any jobs in the public sector ought to be open to all. We ought to make sure it's a diverse staff. I know I've worked hard to make sure that my staff is diverse, and I certainly encourage anybody who runs for a local office, when they're hiring on a public sector basis, that they have to have a diverse staff. But more than that, in order for people to be able to move on and get $70,000, $80,000 a year jobs, there has to be education. And the first thing we have to do, one of the first things we have to do, is ensure that our public education is educating our children, that they have access to good education, and then they have access to higher education once they get out of school. If we don't do that, we've failed our children, we've failed our next generation, because they're not going to be able to fill those well-paying jobs.
Okay, Sheriff?
Well, Mark hit it right on the head. We need diversity in the workforce, and that's one of my goals as the sheriff, because I think your department should reflect the community you serve. And we're not there yet, and it's a problem with all police departments, but we're certainly not using excuses. We're going out and actively recruiting. We're going to up our ranks in the minority community, because it's very important. You don't want somebody that looks like me coming in your community telling you how to act. I mean, so we need balance. I mean, like it or not, sometimes there's cultural differences. Sometimes we may speak different languages. So, if we get more minority officers in the more minority communities, I think there will be a different level of respect. So that's a goal of mine. And it's just, a lot of times Republicans are business owners, and we always say we can't find employees. Well, are we looking hard enough? We need to build relationships with each other. You know what I mean? I come to you looking for officers in my department. So it's all about relationships, knowing each other and trusting each other, and we have to take care of each other.
Yes, and one of the reasons why I ask about that, and one of the reasons why this is one of our national, so the game changers I'm going to read, these come straight from our national office. Mm-hmm. So these are our national game changers and have went across the whole segment of our 2,200 units across the country. Mm-hmm. And these are these are the goals that drive us inside the 21st century. So when I think about economic sustainability, I say, okay, well, how many individuals, if we were to take a look at all the jobs within the city, within the county, under the electoral positions, and then we would say, well, have we ever actually done done an assessment to see how many employees are middle managers, how many employees are in upper management, how many employees are in lower management? Have we truly done an assessment to really say, well, yes, education is vitally important, but then there are probably some people who are in higher leadership positions who may not have, a degree, but they're in a leadership position. So then you may have somebody in middle management, within the ranks that may be in a position who has a degree, who may even have a master's degree. And the reason I know this is because we get those kind of complaints down at our office. Sure. Not specifically related to state or local. I mean, it's across the board that we get these kind of complaints. Yeah. So I just wanted to make certain that you all understood that that is something that the national office has given us a directive that we are to look at those types of issues. How are our elected officials, are they being held accountable? Are they setting the examples of diversity, within their respective ranks? Yeah. The next one, and I think you're going to hit on this right here, but our next one is education. Right. It says, education, a free, high-quality public education for all. Every child will receive a free, high-quality, equitably funded public pre-K and K through 12 education, followed by diverse opportunities for accessibility, affordable vocational and university education. So yes, education is extremely important, as we know, and as we've been hearing about these various report cards that's coming out here lately. I think the mayor has a great, Mayor Nan Whaley has a great program that she implemented in her first year in office. So talk to me about that. And, since she's on the Democratic side, talk to me about, the City of Learners initiative.
Well, I know Mayor Whaley put together a wide variety of people to come together and come up with some ideas, and they're still working through those. I know that they have some plans that they're going to be rolling out this year that I believe that they're going to go forward with. Again, it's so important that if our kids have to have a good quality education to start out life. If they don't have that, they don't get the access to college, they don't get access to high-paying jobs, and unfortunately they get, they come into the ugly cycle of continuing poverty and crime. And I think that education, we can't move forward as a city, as a community, as a county, unless we address, not just in the city of Dayton, but there's other areas of pockets of poverty in Montgomery County, whether it be Jefferson Township and Trotwood and places like that we need to raise up the educational standards and educational opportunities for those children so that they can move forward. And again, the second axis that we need to look at, college is becoming so expensive that we have to address that. Even in people look at, I'm a clerk of courts, and people say, well, you have clerks working for you. More and more people, when I hire them, I don't think that, most of them were looking for someone with a college education because there's more responsibilities, there's more technology that they're working with. So even for a quote unquote clerk's job, people think it's a pencil pusher and stuff. You still need a quality education to do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Education is the key to anybody's success, and especially nowadays with the job market out there. We've lost so much manufacturing, and everything's going to service or technology. And if you don't have a good education, like Mark said, you're going to have a rough time finding a high-paying job. We're bringing some jobs to our communities, but they're just not high-paying jobs, and I don't know how people are supporting families on them. So, we have to really look at our educational system. I think in the jail, 75% of the inmates did not even graduate from high school. So it's a no-brainer where you're probably going to end up if you don't at least graduate from high school, because you have no skills. You can't get a job. Then you have to go hit the streets and hustle. So the key is getting our kids to school, keeping our kids in the school, having a safe learning environment for our kids. that really frustrates me now, you know, my kids are doing homework on computers. You know, they're sending their schoolwork to their teachers over the internet. Just the technology advances. Some of these school systems, I hope they can keep up, because if the ship sails and you don't keep up with it, it's going to be hard catching up with it. So we really need as a community to keep working on education standards.
And let me just share with you, in terms of our issues, and this is how we lobby on Capitol Hill. And we're also going to eventually create a state legislative report card and a local legislative report card. Those are things that we're currently working with our national office on, you know, to actually come up with a report card. But here are the issues in terms of education. We want to be able to reduce financial disparities, you know, between schools, because as we know, that's a major issue, is school funding. We want full federal funding for public education programs. You know, we need to make certain that kids in the urban core have some of the same opportunities that our kids inside of our you know, inside the more affluent areas have. So if we need to have some kids that are going to school hungry, you know, we need to have some kind of, we have feeding programs already in place, but maybe there need to be more after school programs or something like that. So we're going to be lobbying hard at the local level, at the state level. We're already doing it at the federal level. Public school construction, repair, you know, renovation. You know, Dayton has done a great job. The Dayton Public School has done a great job at, you know, at rebuilding all of our schools. Now we need to make certain that we get the teachers, the right teachers, on the bus inside the right schools to make certain that we bring up our education standards, you know, and the scores inside the school. You know, we want to make certain that we oppose discriminatory, high stakes educational testing, you know, oppose publicly funded private school vouchers, maintain the federal role in ensuring a decent public education available to all, allow students convicted of minor drug offenses to receive federal financial aid. You know, these are issues that we're lobbying for on Capitol Hill, that a lot of citizens don't know behind the scenes the things that we're doing if they're not really following us. Increase funding for historically black colleges and universities, and make college more affordable to all Americans. Increase funding for federal Pell Grants. So those are just some of the issues that we're lobbying for on Capitol Hill. You know, and then if I look at economic sustainability, you know, in what we call economic justice issues, you know, I'm just going to read a few of them. We want to make certain that we protect Social Security. You know, a person like me, I have 23 years on the job here very soon. So I have about 7 more years to fully retire. I want to make certain that my Social Security benefits are in place at the time that I retire. Enable workers to unionize. So, you know, NAACP and labor has been partners for a very long time. And we want to make certain that if you know, if there are workers out there that want to be able to unionize, that they have the right to do so. Job creation, equal pay for equal work. You know, we've been hearing here lately that females are underpaid, you know, for the same job that a male you know, is doing. So those are the kind of disparities that the NAACP continues to fight for and will continue to fight for in the days ahead. Our next game changer is health. It says health equality for all Americans, including a healthy lifestyle or a healthy life and high quality health care. Everyone will have equal access to affordable, high quality health care, and racially disparate health outcomes will end. So from a health standpoint, you know, is either one of your parties pushing any kind of advocate or advocating for any kind of health policies, you know, within you know, our nation or state or local governments?
Go ahead.
Well, we're constantly pushing to improve our communities, and you know, my biggest concern about the minority community is, you know, you hear the new term of food deserts, and we absolutely have food deserts in our minority communities. You know, you have to be able to eat right for basic health, right? Then also, if you're having health issues, you need proper health care. But we have to start at the very bottom here, and let's get the proper nourishment. So we got to get rid of these mom and pop stores on the corner that are selling us outdated food items, and let's get some solid grocery stores back in our communities where somebody doesn't have to travel miles on the other side of town to get their groceries, and half the people they have problems with transportation. You know, so we really need to look at items like that as a community, and we've done a terrible job as leaders in our minority community, and I'll be the first one to stand up and say that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously there are, food deserts, if you so will, but to the basic question of access to health care. I mean, obviously, it's been a contentious issue, and our President Barack Obama passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010, and it's gone a long way to improve access to health care for around the country, and that more needs to be done. There were some of it was left to local states, and in Ohio we've been fortunate that our governor, even though he's a Republican governor, has made the Medicare aspect of the affordable health care available. Other states haven't done that, and so people in those states have a much tougher time getting that access. So that is one place that that certainly our party has pushed for. Certainly we have people within our party, and one of our presidential candidates wants to change it to have a one-payer system. That's pretty controversial. Has worked in other countries, but those are the kind of things that our party has been looking at.
And so right here inside of Montgomery County, have your party talked about the Affordable Care Act? Because the NAACP, we do support the Affordable Care Act. In fact, we hope that by the end of this month is when the Affordable Care Act open enrollment ends on January 31st. So we're in the process of trying to get more people signed up for the Affordable Care Act by that month end. So what is the Republican Party's position here in Montgomery County? I mean, because I know everybody is different. Everybody has their own philosophies in terms of party politics, but in terms of your county perspective, what is you all's position on the Affordable Care Act?
Well, the Affordable Care Act, in our opinion, it's really created some problems, especially as far as some people can only work 30 hours a week now. Some people have to get 2 and 3 jobs because it's hindered their ability to work full time. Like Mark said, the governor expanded Medicare here, so that's really helped everybody out, and that was very controversial, but that seems to be helping us out. I'm seeing a lot more people getting services through that, which is costly, but especially the heroin epidemic. We're trying to get people treated, and they have to have Medicare for their treatment. So, the Republicans are for helping everybody, but we have to do it the right way. But we can't say this program stinks without an alternative, without another solution. So there has to be more dialogue on that. Locally, we're grassroots people. Unfortunately, we can't really make a great connection with D.C. and the people up there. Okay. I mean, there's just not many opportunities. But locally, we're always willing to help everybody.
Okay. Well, in terms of how we lobby on Capitol Hill, in terms of health, is that we want to make sure there's full funding for AIDS prevention, treatment, and education. So that's something that the NAACP is lobbying for all the time on Capitol Hill. Full implementation of the health care reform, which is the Affordable Care Act. So we want to make certain that, and here's the issue that we have as NAACP. A lot of times people will just get behind, for instance, you want to call it Obamacare, but when we think about, is it Obamacare or is it Obamacares or is it truly the Affordable Care Act? I believe that it's the Affordable Care Act. There has been many presidential candidates, there has been many people in Congress, members of Congress, who have tried to pass some type of health care legislation, and it didn't happen. So here it is, you have the individual who becomes the first African-American president of these United States of America. He gets it passed, and all of a sudden, people are against it. So sometimes with us, when you have over 11 million citizens throughout this country who has had an opportunity to get health care coverage, how can somebody be against it? And not only that, you want to call it Obamacare so that it continues to linger in the minds of those individuals who already could be potentially harboring hatred in their hearts anyway. So when they say Obama, then instead of them saying Affordable Care Act, I don't think it would get as much attention if, in fact, everybody just said Affordable Care Act versus Obamacare. And we want to make certain that we end childhood obesity and protect Medicare and Medicaid benefits. So, those are the things that we're lobbying for on Capitol Hill, and we'll be doing the same thing here locally. Our fourth 21st century game changer is public safety and criminal justice. And what's under that particular area says equitable dispensation of justice for all. Disproportionate incarceration, racially motivated policing strategies, and racially biased discriminatory and mandatory minimum sentences will end. Incarceration will be greatly reduced and communities will be safer. The death penalty will be abolished at the state and federal level as well as in the military. So these are things that we want to continue to pursue. Is that, we just saw some on the news just yesterday. Video that they released from, I believe, 2013 in Chicago, where a young man is running away from the police, and they gun him down in the back as he's running. And time after time after time again, we are seeing too many of these incidents. And the only reason why we're seeing these things now is because people have cell phones now and video, and they're able to capture different things like that on the cell phone. Just like the cop, I can't think of the community he was in, but the young man who was also running, it was early part of this year, and the police officer said, or he dispatched and said he reached for my taser, but it was somebody in the bushes just happened to be filming this and watched the police go gun him down in the back as he's running, pick up his taser, and go lay it by the man's body. What if that person who was filming that video had not been there? What if? And those are the things that people of color see happening and think, that has been happening for a very long time, but now that their cell phones are starting to come out. The one thing I can say about our community, is that we have been in a position whereas we've not had a lot of, not a lot of police-involved shootings. We have some that we're still investigating that you and I work together on. Sometimes we don't see eye to eye on that, but at the end of the day, it becomes we are an organization that's about justice. So whether or not me and you are friends or me and you are friends, at the end of the day for the NAACP, it's about justice. So when we think about the public safety and criminal justice aspect of the NAACP and what we're trying to target, and it's to end these racially motivating police strategies that incarcerate young black men. What is you all's position on that?
Well, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Right. So, but you talked a little bit about the strategies, and then you talked about some of the things that are happening. I think maybe as a result of maybe the overcrowding in prison, maybe people run because they think that because of their color of their skin, because they're dark, that they're going to have more chance of going to jail for sometimes as seen as maybe a minor crime than a person of a lighter color skin.
Okay.
One of the policies, and I think it's not just, I think actually both parties are looking at this now. It was a result of back in the 1980s when they started doing things like 3 strikes and you're out, and starting to jail people for fairly minor crimes, not minor crimes, but maybe non-violent crimes, we'll say, whether it be drugs or that type of stuff, and that filled up the prison system. And it was disproportionately, minorities and African Americans, et cetera, that were getting in jail. And actually, both parties, the presidential candidates of both parties, have made moves to change the law to have more community-based policing, incarceration, whether it be ankle bracelets, and I know that in our local community, our municipal court runs a program for the entire county where rather than putting people in jail for nonviolent offenses, they're put on an ankle bracelet, and our court runs that. Yeah. So we're doing that already locally, and I think they're doing it both statewide and nationally because they see it as a problem. As to the police shootings, it's as you said, part of it's the cameras. Each one is an individual. I can't make a blanket statement on it.
That's true.
Okay, I'm not and I'm not going to make a blanket statement. 90%, 99% probably of police officers don't do that kind of foul, ugly, improper, gross type of policing that occurs there. And when it happens, they should be prosecuted. After a fair investigation for the police officers as well. When they break the law, they should be prosecuted like everybody else. But I'm certainly not going to make a blanket statement that but I do think that, and I think Phil would probably agree with me, that you do have to continually educate your employees, the people that work for you and the criminal justice system, on how people should be treated, how the proper work, how it's done, and over time that changes on how you do things too. So you don't police the same way certainly in 2015 as you did 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So, Phil.
Yeah, the first misnomer is the police officers, we don't make the laws, we enforce them. So the legislators make the laws, the judges do the sentencing, and the judges sometimes hands are tied through the legislative actions as well. We just enforce the laws. And with any profession, everybody's going to have a few problematic employees. But the job of the leaders is to take care of the employees and weed out the bad ones. And, talk about unions. Unions make it hard to discipline bad employees. And that's one of your goals as unions as NAACP, but you also have to see both sides of that sword, because some officers that should not be police officers, it takes a long process to get rid of them. Sometimes when something bad goes on in the community, you guys want them fired the next day. Well, you have to go through the whole collective bargaining agreement. You have to properly investigate them and discipline them. So, we sometimes have to be careful what we ask for. But I will tell you this. The majority of the police officers are very good people, and they don't care what color your skin is. When you call 911, they're coming to your house to protect you. I think the media's blown a lot of the shootings out of proportion. There has been some bad ones, but when you see it on TV 20 times a day, it makes it look twice as bad. But I'll stand behind the officers. They're good people. They live amongst us, and they care about us. The bad ones, that's our job to take care of them.
Well, let's see, a lot of people don't know this, but my father was actually a police officer.
Yeah.
He was a Jefferson Township police officer. So I have an opportunity, or had an opportunity when my father was living, to be in the household of a police officer. And so my father, his partners used to ride our neighborhoods, protect and serve our community. And, but there are, at the end of the day, whether or not we want to say it or believe it or not, there are a lot of great police officers, but unfortunately, there are some bad seeds inside that apple.
Yeah.
So, so those are the ones that, to your point, that we need to weed out and hold them accountable. And one thing that I want to say and commend you on, and that is because we had talked about this a while back ago, and that's the diversity training that you conduct with all of your staff, which I thought was pretty good. I was actually a part of that, and I was glad you implemented that. And it doesn't take one time; it actually takes continual training. Because when you look at different cultures, maybe there should be more African American sheriff deputies policing. Maybe the urban core. So they understand their culture, yeah. and still make certain they're enforcing the law, as you said. Yeah. But if people don't come from, or people come from various different backgrounds that don't understand various cultures, then it's kind of hard to really relate with somebody. And then all of a sudden, a little small incident has blown into a huge crisis.
Yeah.
Last area in terms of our 5 game changers, 21st century game changers, is voting rights and political representation. And this is kind of what I really want to talk about for the rest of our time here today. Voting rights and political representation. It says to protect and enhance voting rights and fair representation. Every American will have free, open, equal, and protected access to the vote and fair representation at all levels of the political process, at all levels. So that's local, that's state, that's national, and that's even the office of president. By protecting democracy, enhancing equity, and increasing democratic participation and civic engagement, African Americans will be proportionally elected to political office. So as we look at voting rights and political representation, a lot of times people don't understand, just like this year is a general election year, it's a presidential election year. So of course we're going to have more people that's going to go out to the polls and vote. But people really need to understand that every election is extremely important, whether or not it's a special election, whether or not it's a midterm election or a general election. Every election is vitally important. So I don't care if you are a Democrat, come out to vote every election for your Democratic friends. If you are a Republican, come out to every election and vote for your Republican friends. But we need to make certain that both parties make certain that they get out, that they're knocking on doors, telling their constituents that it's important to vote at every single election. Same thing for the NAACP. Yeah. We canvass neighborhoods. We get people out there on the road, inside the neighborhoods to make certain that they're out there educating people about the various candidates. Because while we don't endorse candidates, but we do have the autonomy to say that this person is not good for our issues. So, and I've already just read to you the issues, and these are the things that we're going to hold our elected officials to: economic sustainability, education, health, political safety and criminal justice, and voting rights and political representation. So those are the issues, the main core 5 issues that's going to drive our bus down the road for well into the future. So when we think about voting rights and political representation, and we think about individuals that want to make it harder for people to exercise their right to vote, what is your position and or thought process about making it harder for people to vote versus making it easier for somebody to vote?
Well, I think we all three sit here and we can agree we want a fair election. We all want a fair election. We don't want to tolerate any cheating. Let's just lay the rules out to us, and we'll all play by the same rules. But we have to make sure we all understand the rules. No one wants to keep somebody from voting. I mean, unfortunately, we sometimes become lazy Americans, and we pass on one of the greatest privileges we have, and that's to go vote. Mm-hmm. Our last mayor race, did we have 20% turnout? I mean, there's no excuse in that.
You're absolutely right.
I don't care what party you're from. Get out and vote and exercise your right. You lose a lot of races by one vote. Mm-hmm. And people sit at home, they think my vote doesn't count. Well, every vote counts. So we got to encourage people to get involved. Don't sit at home and complain about your elected officials when you didn't vote to do anything to change it.
That's right.
So we're all about, everybody has a chance to vote, and let's keep it fair, and let's vote.
Okay. Well, we obviously believe that everyone should have the right to vote. The access should be made easy, and when restrictions are put on about requiring, I mean, we went through almost over 200 years of our existence and didn't have to require having photo IDs and further restrictions on when you come to vote. And to do that, it's particularly with some elderly folks and some poor in our community that don't have that don't have driver's license, that don't have easy access to be able to go down and get, the required government photo IDs. That's a restriction on vote that shouldn't happen. I mean, we have a fight in this government over whether there should be restrictions on how to buy weapons, but they turn around and put on restrictions on another basic right, and that's the right to vote. And it should be made easy. It should, as our society has grown and we have more access to more people have jobs now. They're 24 hours a day. We have people that that work at night, have to sleep at day. So that's why they opened up the ability to vote and sometimes during the week. That's why they made it easier to vote by mail, that type of stuff. So putting restrictions on, like when there's been, frankly, no show of fraud. And I mean, we've had how many millions of people vote in Ohio, and I think last time they brought like 3 or 4 fraud prosecutions for Ohio. So I think that they should make access to vote as easy as possible.
Right. Well, from a Capitol Hill standpoint, here are the issues that we have taken before Congress. Mm-hmm. Ensure voting rights protections for all eligible Americans. End deceptive practices in elections. Oppose photo identification requirements for voting. Campaign finance reform. Re-enfranchisement of ex-felon offenders. expand and strengthen the Voting Rights Act of 1965, congressional voting rights and statehood for the District of Columbia, same-day voter registration, and universal early voting and Sunday voting. So those are the issues that we are currently lobbying for on Capitol Hill to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to have the right to vote. That's something that if somebody's message is not great, if you're out on the political scene and you're running for office and you don't have a great message, go inside the toolkit and get some mentors around you. Try to sharpen your message. Instead of you going out and trying to say, hey, a person shouldn't be able to vote with their light bill or their gas bill or whatever the case may be. No, sharpen your toolbox. Sharpen your tools in your toolbox and make certain that you sharpen your message and that you're able to reach the voters and to have people to come out and vote for you. So when we look at, so these are our legislative priorities. Our 5 21st century game changers: economic sustainability, education, health, public safety and criminal justice, voting rights and political representation. So as we look at this voting rights and political representation piece, it comes to mind when you all did something historic, probably about a month or so ago. And, that is both political parties. I hadn't seen this in any recent memory, and maybe you all can help me out if that has happened recently or when the last time it happened. But you all came together, on a particular issue, and kind of talk to us about that. What made you two come together as political chairs, as political party chairs, Democrat and Republican? What made you all finally say, hey, we can work across the aisle and work with each other? What made you do that?
Well, I think you're talking about the Dayton Together plan that some people have in the community, and I think basically we both agreed, and we had been talked about this. They actually had us come in and talk to this group, and we both agreed that this Dayton Together plan was bad for our community. Yeah. It changes our form of government when it's not necessary. In my opinion, it disenfranchises 140,000 people within the city of Dayton because it takes away their right to self-governance, and in doing so, it disenfranchises particularly African Americans who, in the city of Dayton, have been, even though African Americans may only make up about 45% of the population in Dayton, they have a majority of people on the Dayton City Commission and have had for several years, and I think that's a problem when you take away. Basically, their whole plan was to take away the government of the city of Dayton and disenfranchise not just African Americans, but 140,000 people within the city of Dayton. We also, and I know Phil can talk a little bit more, but it changes the basic structure of county government. We have a county government that works. We've had Republicans, 15 years ago there were 3 Republicans that sat on the county commission. Right now the pendulum has swung to the other way, but it could swing back this year to have a majority. It's that close in Montgomery County. Yeah. And so to change that, we've not had scandal here. We've had good people. We've had leaders in their field of work that we think it's not right to change this form of government.
Yeah. I agree with Mark. It's just the right thing to do. I mean, your urban areas are typically Democratic, and, like Mark said, you have a lot of minorities on the city council. So, yeah, we could have played games and seen it as a political advantage to eliminate the city of Dayton and have one government, but it's not the right thing to do. So, one thing you know about me, I'm going to do the right thing. And this system isn't broke, so that does not need fixed. I grew up here in Dayton. I'm proud of the city of Dayton. And it is what it is, and let's stick with this form of government. One person in this community wants to change it. Why didn't he listen to the rest of us who don't want to change it? But no, he's going to keep pushing forward because it's his own personal agenda. Well, they have this form of government in Cuyahoga County. Maybe he should move to Cuyahoga County because we're all satisfied with how our government is here. We pay the taxes, we pay the freight. Leave us alone.
Well, that's really the kind of work of the NAACP, is being able to bring people together. And as I stated at that press conference, I thought that was very good that you all were able to work together, and you all were able to work together because of an issue.
Yeah.
Your party has your own vision how you would like to see things run inside this county, inside this country, in this state. Same thing with your party. But what brought you together, what brought you two county chairs together, parties together, was an issue that was going to affect both of your parties in a way of thinking about your constituents, about the people who work within your party and the office holders and things like that. And that's what the NAACP do. NAACP, we once again are an issues-driven organization. So when, as you know, the NAACP first went out against this way back in July, probably 4 or 5 days after it was first announced. The NAACP was in opposition of it basically from day one. But not only that, I had an opportunity, the esteemed honor, to go and lobby Congress. 2 months later, so I had an opportunity to, our organization nationally went on a 1,000-mile America's Journey for Justice. That's what it's called, America's Journey for Justice. Walked through 5 states. There are some people who walked 1,000 miles through 5 states to make certain that people's rights are not going to continue to be trampled upon. 5 states, 1,000 miles that people put on their feet. And then we all convened right there on Capitol Hill on September 16th of 2015. It was my job as a local president to go and meet with my congressmen, our members of Congress. One was Senator Sherrod Brown. So I went to go meet with Senator Sherrod Brown and his staff. I went to go meet with Senator Rob Portman and his staff. I went to go meet with Congressman Mike Turner and his staff. These are things that we do as NAACP. We want to make certain that people's rights, no matter what political party, we want to hold your party accountable, we want to hold and my party accountable, and we want to hold your party accountable. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, what drove you two together, I'm hitting on this for a point, is an issue. Yeah. So when people see the NAACP talking to a Republican, or if people see the NAACP talking to a Democrat, don't look down upon the NAACP when you understand how and what our cause is for justice. Our cause for justice is to make certain that we fight the issues that's going to help all Americans. For instance, with Mike Turner, he is our congressperson. No matter how you slice it, dice it, cut it, he is our congressperson. We had to make certain, and we lobbied him to make certain he supported the Voting Rights Amendment Act of 2015 and then of 2016. From my understanding, some people were upset about that. But what drove you two together, once again, was an issue. What drove me and my political action chairperson to go and meet with Congressman Turner was an issue, which was voting rights. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make certain that we held our member of Congress accountable and make certain he pushed an agenda item for us, which affects all of us, because as we all agree upon, voting is highly important. Yes. 20%, as you said, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. We need to make certain that and if we have members of Congress that's fighting for us to ensure that our voting rights are protected, we want to make certain that we're doing our job to make certain that people go out there to vote. So those are the things that the NAACP, once again, we are an issues-driven organization. So when we talk about the NAACP and our goals and our visions and where we're going in a place that we want to make certain that everybody's rights are protected. No matter who you are, where you come from, if you're black, if you're white, if you're Latino, if you're Hispanic, if you're Democrat or Republican, we want to make certain that everybody's right is protected. And one thing I can say about you two gentlemen, which I really, really love, is that both of you, under my watch, became life members of the NAACP here in Dayton, which also made you life members of the NAACP nationally. So I want to present to both of you our 100th commemorative pin. And I want you two to wear this with pride and distinction.
All right, thank you.
Okay? 100 years inside this community fighting for civil and human rights.
Thank you very much.
Both
Thank
of you two are life members of the NAACP. We appreciate everything you do, and we want to make certain that we continue to work together for the betterment of our community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
We thank you for what you do. You do a fine job. And
Thank you.
You're very fair.
Right.
Thank you.
Keep fighting for the people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Derrick, and keep up the good work and keep fighting for those issues that are important to all of us.
Thank you, sir.